everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Optmyzr. My name is Mari Breilin, and today we will be discussing shopping, e-commerce, PMax, and the upcoming Q4. All right, so let's get started with one of the most important areas for e-commerce teams during the shopping season. Monitoring and alerting, making sure that you're just on top of performance patterns without having to constantly check your accounts manually. But before we actually go there, just one housekeeping item for those that may not have used Optmyzr for e-commerce previously. I do recommend linking your Merchant Center login, and through that we'll get access to your Merchant Center feeds. You can do that easily by clicking the Link Another Account CTA on your All Accounts dashboard. Right, so you can have monitoring happening at the account level, in which case you can simply just hover over any metric here on the All Accounts dashboard and see recent performance trends. If you have an alert already set up for that KPI, you'll see where you are, where you have landed in terms of performance and whether you're over or under that. If you've decided to track certain KPIs, cost per conversions, ROAS, whatever that might be, and you are outside of those accepted parameters and accepted limits, you will get a notification from Optmyzr through email, Slack, or Microsoft Teams, whichever channel you're using. If you want to set up alerts through Slack or Microsoft Teams, head over to the Utilities section right here under Integrations. You'll find those options. But let's go to the monitoring section here and their alert settings. In the monitoring section, you can set up alerts, your KPIs at the account level, like the All Accounts dashboard, but you can also set them up at more granular level, for example, for specific campaigns. The alert section helps you set up smart alerts that make sure that you don't need to keep logging into your accounts every day and making sure that performance is where it's supposed to be, but rather you have these checks in place that do that monitoring on your behalf. You can create these alerts for specific campaigns, all your campaigns, set up alerts for several accounts at a time, and decide how you actually want to receive these alerts. So let's say you wanted to track return on ad spend trends and set up alerts if the products that were in your top 10% in terms of return on ad spend now fall into the bottom 50%, for instance. This way you don't need to keep tracking your entire inventory, but you get notifications when your top products start moving outside of those accepted parameters. Similarly, if you have a loss leader product and you want to make sure that the products that are among your top products in terms of clicks fall into those lower buckets, that will trigger an alert. That's it. Feed health is obviously another key area. You want to make sure that if a certain number of products or a certain percentage of your products gets disapproved, that will trigger an alert. If you want to track budgets across different accounts with portfolios or within a single account, and just make sure that there's no overspending that happens, that your team is always up to date in terms of budget pacing. The alerts are a great way to do that. You can decide what kind of action is taken. If you just want to keep this email alert level, for instance, absolutely feel free to do that. You can also decide to get notifications and pause accounts, pause campaigns before they reach that critical threshold, and make sure that those same campaigns are then re-enabled again when a new budget period starts. And if you want to take things a little bit further and create something a tiny bit more personalized even, you can use the rule engine under Manage and Optimize to build your custom alerts and integrate them with your alert center. Now, for those of you that might be new to rule engine in Optmyzr, it works with if this, then that statements, and lets you create custom alerts, custom reports, even custom automations, and automate those to either send alerts, send you a pre-authorization request for changes, or simply make those changes on your behalf without your intervention there. Depends on how much you want to automate, what kind of tasks you want to standardize, and what kind of tasks you actually feel comfortable with automating fully, and where you want to be part of that process and make sure that nothing gets applied without your explicit authorization. And the reason why I brought up Rule Engine is that there are a lot of really smart ways of building rules and making those a part of your monitoring efforts. And you can get started with the library rules. There are about 80 different rules that you can choose from, personalize them, automate them, however you want to go about it. But you can also bring in your secret sauce and build your own rules from scratch. And if you want to do that, you can just click Add Strategy and create a strategy. Here, what we want to do is select first the scope, the level that you want to build your rules for. In this case, I'll take an example of shopping and PMax product. When we click there, you can see what kind of library rules there are already in the pre-build section. We can take one of those, go ahead and view and edit it, and perhaps even automate those strategies. But we can also build something from scratch. And by the way, strategy in Optmyzr is a funnel of stacked rules. So one strategy can include several rules, and rules include several conditions. That's just a little bit about the vocabulary, but let's have a look at a custom alert that we can build for that product. Now here, what I've done is I've built a fully customized alert using a couple of different conditions inside a rule, 3 to be exact. So the purpose of this strategy and the purpose of this rule is to get a notification if any product's performance starts trending in the wrong direction. And specifically what I've done here is I've added a condition that says, hey, if in the previous 14 days, not in the most recent 14 days, but the previous period, this product was among the top 10 products in terms of sales volume, conversions in the account. And now in the most recent 14 days, it has fallen to that bottom 50% in terms of conversions. And at the same time, the cost per conversion has increased. So we're essentially paying more for less. And if you were to build something similar and get a notification, that means that immediate action is most likely required. But it also means that things have not escalated necessarily yet. So you can capture those performance drops before they actually lead to long-term consequences. Now remember what kind of conditions these rules have and how many rules they are there, and how many rules are stacked on top of each other. That depends on you. I kept this very simple for this demo set. Now the next step would be simply to view the suggestions. This is where we can also automate those checks to happen, for example, on a weekly basis. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the feed itself, the foundation of any shopping PMax campaign for e-commerce. So once you have connected your merchant feed into Optmyzr, you can do things like run a feed audit, you can analyze product level performance, you can build campaigns, segment those quickly and stay up to date, in addition to the alerts that we just saw. And the shopping tab in the account dashboard gives you merchant center stats, product service status, countries, which products are disapproved, which are not serving in any campaign, etc., as well as additional insights, your feed health. We'll be talking about that today. Quick suggestions if there are any missing component, missing attributes in your shopping feed, brands, descriptions, etc. A little bit insight into performance, how performance segmentation looks like within your campaigns, which are your top products, your heroes, which are your sidekicks, your flukes, villains, zombies, etc. You can then set up labels around these performance buckets and build campaigns, obviously. But before we go there, I did want to mention here the PMax channel distribution widget. If Google has not enabled the channel distribution insights within their UI for your accounts yet, not to worry, you can always use the PMax channel distribution and Optmyzr. We've had this for a few years now, and it gives you an estimation as to where your ads are showing. And the nice thing here is that you can see those estimations across different campaigns. So you don't need to keep toggling between campaigns and from campaign to campaign, but rather see them all in one place. If you see a lot of cost going into the display channel, for instance, that might be your cue to go ahead and make sure that you have an effective placement exclusion strategy in place. In Optmyzr, you can, for instance, head over to the Manage and Optimize section, go back to Rule Engine, and you'll find within the library of pre-built strategies two placement cleanup strategies specifically designed to exclude placements that are typically associated with kids content and gaming content and these kind of low value placements. And you can have those cleanups run on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, however often you want. But let's get back to this dashboard for a second. You can also find benchmarking info here, which of your products are above the benchmark, below the benchmark. If you want to see those products, feel free to dig in deeper here as well. I'll scroll back up a little bit to go to the feed audit section here. The feed audits are basically your standardized audit templates that you can use across your different feeds to make sure that certain best practices are followed. You can use them in customer acquisition if you're an agency or a freelancer while you're auditing the accounts, get a sense of what's actually going on in the feeds and how you might want to improve them. And also use them as standard health checks that your team checks on a monthly by monthly basis and gets insights and ideas on what kind of things to focus. So these feed audits provide a one-page health check, a combination of structural checks as well as performance-based checks. For example, you can have a look at the product groups and listing groups section here to uncover if there are any expensive product and listing groups relative to the typical costs in the campaign. You can also make sure that the product titles and descriptions are of the optimal length, especially if a lot of your traffic comes from mobile users. If your titles are very, very long, it means that Google won't show the entire title to your potential customers, but rather only the first 30, 40, 50 characters or so. You can use this information easily and download it for easy editing and make those changes then in the Merchant Center and see how that affects your performance. Because these are templates and the idea is that you can reuse them across your different feeds, across your different clients, save them for later use. Feel free to make edits and tweak these. For example, if you have clients that run ads for different types of businesses, let's say for somebody running ads for food and beverage industry, it might be very important to have things like weight as an attribute in the feed. You can make sure that all your food and beverage industry clients have those attributes there. In practice, how you would do this is you simply go to the shipping section and make sure that the shipping weight audit is enabled. And this way, any product that doesn't have this information will get flagged. Now let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about product level analysis. Under the shopping tab, you will find something called shopping analysis. Now, the shopping analysis helps you go beyond Google Ads product report. It combines Google Ads performance metrics, Merchant Center attributes, and additional data points as well. It doesn't matter if the products have been part of Performance Max campaigns or standard shopping campaigns, as long as they have some performance during the look back window that you're using here, they will show up in this analysis. So let's take a concrete example. Let's go ahead and select from the attributes drop down product type 0 for this example, and let's aggregate performance for the different product type zeros with different return on ad spend buckets. First, we'll simply get a table here, and this will be our way to sort the table quickly get a sense of which of our product types, which are in this example, men's, women's, boys, girls, and kids, have the highest return on ad spend and see what kind of ROAS bucket they fall into. What I actually wanted to show you here was a data visualization setting. And when we click there, we can actually see something very interesting here. What we're essentially doing is we're aggregating data here for product type 0 in the y-axis and in the x-axis, and then color coding that conversion volume. And when you plot conversion volume against return on ad spend buckets for these product categories, you can see that men's and women's categories generate most of their conversions in the lower ROAS buckets, with volumes decreasing as return on ad spend increases. This isn't necessarily a huge surprise, but it's interesting to see here in an easy to visualize way. And for kids, girls, and boys, those lower ROAS buckets don't necessarily bring in a higher conversion volumes. Now, if profitability isn't an issue and you want more sales, then it might be worth increasing the spend on women's and men's products within those lower ROAS categories. And if you need to protect margins, you could also make sure that these lower ROAS products that do convert, but you're spending more on as well, are not using up too much of your budget. For example, with product segmentation, campaign segmentation. And that will be actually our next topic. To build new campaigns, you can head over to the settings section of your account dashboard, and there you'll find a button in the campaign tab to create new campaigns. This will allow you to create campaigns for search, PMax lead gen, PMax retail, standard shopping, and you will be also able to build display campaigns very soon. And in addition to that, under Manage and Optimize, Optmyzr Advanced Campaigns and Campaign Automator, you will be able to complement your shopping and performance max campaigns with inventory-based search campaigns or responsive display ads campaigns. So let me show you how you can set up campaigns with a few clicks, make sure that those follow the structures that you want to use and stay up to date when there are changes in your inventory. I am in the shopping campaign management now, building a new campaign. We can add a product selection if we want to narrow down the products that are built out. If we don't add anything here, Optmyzr will analyze the entire feed, add the campaign type that you want to use, from standard shopping with manual CPC bidding to Optmyzr smart campaigns, i.e. standard shopping with target ROAS bidding, to performance max retail campaigns. Now, the next step is to decide the campaign structure. You can have the AI suggest you different combinations, from the most frequently used attributes to the best performers to performance-based segmentation, or you can create something manually and from scratch. Now you have three options. You can either create one single campaign with, of course, as many asset groups and listing groups as you want, as long as you stay within Google's limits. You can create multiple campaigns by different feed attributes, product type 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. Or you can create multiple campaigns using rules, custom rules for different feed attributes and performance metrics. So you can create these buckets, and each bucket is a campaign. Our system will recommend a structure for you. If you want to use that, go ahead. If you want to make changes to that, please feel free to do so. Nowadays, many advertisers, especially advertisers using Performance Max, which is the majority of the e-commerce advertisers as of today, also use a labeling strategy. You can use Optmyzr to set up labels for those different performance buckets and then build your campaigns around the labels. You can find the Smart Product Labeler under the Shopping tab and create different templates, different rules for your product segmentation. For example, the starts, laggards, potentials, opportunities, and so forth. Just like in the campaign builder, here our system will also recommend certain buckets based on your existing performance and current performance, but you can always modify those and tweak things if and when needed. First, you need to make sure that you have a custom label column in the Merchant Center. When you get started, this is the column that we'll be using when labeling those products and categorizing them into those performance buckets. In this example, there are 5 performance buckets: stars, laggards, potentials, opportunities, and a learning bucket that will catch everything that might not be within these 4 previous categories. And once you're ready, just apply these to a supplemental data feed. Now you can easily come back to shopping campaign management, build multiple campaigns by feed attributes, select that custom attribute, custom label as your first level of hierarchy, and then decide how you go about with your asset groups and listing groups. The next step would be then to just make sure that your campaigns are in sync, and there's an automation that looks at your product feed, looks at your campaigns, and makes sure that both are in sync. If there are changes in the product feed in terms of performance or in terms of the products that are actually in there, the right changes are made based on the settings that you have selected here. Using this kind of product segmentation strategy is very popular because you have now a little bit more granular control over the target ROAS levels that you have there, in the budget amounts that you're using in your campaigns, and you can make those tweaks, for example, to favor the higher volume products over the lower volume products, as long as those are clubbed together. The idea is that you don't need to manually intervene here once you're done with your settings, so you can set this up once and you can make sure that the automation does that, moving products from one campaign to another based on their performance, as well as other updates. If you sell products that are somehow related to weather conditions, you can also check out the optimized campaigns by weather. Optmyzr connects to an external API, a weather API, and pulls in data from there and helps you set up rules based on upcoming weather conditions in different locations. And the idea is that you can have these weather-based rules that, for example, look at conditions like maximum temperature, rain, clouds, clear, etc., etc., in the locations that you've selected. Denmark as a country is targeted, but we can say, hey, if in any city in Denmark tomorrow the condition is equal to snow, then let's enable this campaign that we've selected here. If that's not true, then pause it. Or target these matching cities and exclude anything that doesn't match these cities, and then revert that when this rule is no longer true. This way you can boost sales and have, for example, a campaign for a rainy day and campaign for a non-rainy day, or snowy day campaigns if you sell winter products. You can find these weather rules in Rule Engine as well, by the way. But we won't go there right now. What I actually wanted to point out in Rule Engine are if this, then that statement building and our custom optimization builder is how to manage return on ad spend and tweak that using Optmyzr. You have under the pre-built strategies, i.e. our library of rules, optimizations for smart bidding campaigns. And here, if you run a standard shopping, you can select between the target ROAS for a campaign and the target ROAS optimization for ad group. If you run Performance Max, then the campaign level optimization is the right one for you. So when you view and create a strategy, you'll get to this editor. And we had a look at this already when we discussed alerts. So we have your conditions here on the left and the action on the right. What we're essentially saying here is that we want to do two things. We want to first check if any campaigns are already exceeding their target return on ad spend and have a good number of sales, good number of conversions, and then start increasing that target little by little to aim for higher returns. On the other hand, we also want to make sure that if there are any campaigns that are losing impression share due to rank, not due to budget, and are also converting either potential, then decrease that target a tiny bit to basically to signal I'm willing to settle for a little bit lower returns in exchange for more volume. Now, in addition to those, or instead of those conditions, you are absolutely free to build the conditions that you want to use here. Weather attributes can be found here, performance metrics. You can find your conversion actions here as well if you want to base your decision on them as opposed to only the primary conversion. Now, again, the next step would be to view our suggestions and decide how we want to automate. Do we want to set an alert? Do we want to add this to our alerts page? Do we want rule engine to make changes without our intervention, or whether we want to be part of that process or pre-authorize any changes before those are actually fully authorized and made? Great. In a rule engine, you can also have rules run on, for example, listing groups. Identify expensive listing groups that might be costing a lot of money, that are not converting or have gotten enough clicks to convert but haven't yet, and then even exclude those if needed. So I won't go into the details in this one, but the idea here is to find listing groups that have a cost per conversion that is at least 1.5 times that campaign's typical cost per conversion. Those would be our high CPA product groups, or listing groups, I should say, actually. And then we generate a report, no action item per se, it's just a report, an alert. And then we also try to find those listing groups that have clicks that exceed the number of clicks typically needed for a conversion in this campaign, but have not converted in the last 30 days in this case, whilst the campaign itself does have some sales, and also generating a report for that. Both sides can be edited here as well. You can, for example, say, okay, let's have the option to exclude these non-converting listing groups and make sure that all those clicks, all that budget is directed to listing groups that actually have better historical performance. The nice thing about these rules is that once you've set them up for one client or for one account, you can use these rules across your different clients as templates. The global icon here means that no matter which account you've selected, no matter which account you're using right now, you will be able to find exactly the same rule engine strategy in that account, and, for instance, run them on automation on all or selected accounts. Using these relative checks, like for example, we had that number of clicks compared to that typical required clicks in the campaign, you are set for success when you want to scale these rules from one client to another. You don't need to tweak those actual numbers and absolute values within the rules. They will always be relative to that campaign's and that client's performance. All right, and that marks the end of our Learn with Optmyzr today. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, or if you want to discuss any idea that you have for this shopping season, for anything else for that matter, let us know. We'll be more than happy to help you. Drop us a message through your Optmyzr account, the chat box in the interface, or support@optmyzr.com. Thank you and take care.